Hello, I'm Jonathan Moyes, Head of Investment Research at Wealth Club, and today I'm with Geoffrey Fostin of Jensen Ventures to talk about the Jensen SEIS Fund. Hello Geoffrey, welcome back to the studio. So we're here to talk about the SEIS Fund. Firstly, what is it, what makes it different, and why should investors consider it?
Hi, Jonathan. Thanks for having us back. It's always great to be here. Our SES fund is a evergreen fund where we invest our investors' capital into fantastic high-growth early-stage businesses. In terms of what makes us different and distinctive, we have three things that we're really happy about, we're really proud about. The first is that we have longevity. We actually have one of the longest-running SES funds in the market. We came in when SES started back in 2012. The second is our track record, and more specifically, our investment-to-exit ratio. Over the last 12 years, we've invested over 144 companies, with 11 exits so far and 75 companies active in our portfolio. In addition to that, we have a 100% record on SS3 certificates. And the third thing we're really proud about is the fact that we take an inclusive approach to our investing, actively seeking diverse founders. We think that really helps us to expand the types of innovations and perspectives that we get within the fund. Just by looking at our applications, we have over 41% of teams that come from an ethnic minority background. Over 30% of our teams have at least one female partner, and over 50% of our teams come from outside of London. For investors who want to get access to really exciting high-growth companies in the SS space, but want it to be done with the confidence of a team that has a track record and a know-how, then we think that SS Fund is a wise choice.
Very good. And so taking a step back, Jensen Ventures, for those who aren't familiar, who are Jensen Ventures and what's your role there?
Sure. So Jensen Ventures is a early stage venture capital fund. We were voted the best SES fund manager and diversity champion this year by the ESA Awards. And just in terms of our journey, just taking a step back, we were founded back in 2012 when the SES scheme got started. We were supported by the Foresight Group back at that time, who were our fund manager. In 2019, we then became fully authorized from the SA to do that role ourselves, and we've grown ever since. Our strategy right now is to run two funds. So we have an SES fund and an ES fund, and the SES fund is the first part of that larger multi-stage strategy that we employ. The idea being is that we support the top 25% of our portfolio companies with that follow-on investments through our ES funds. In terms of myself, I joined Jensen in 2013. As an intern, actually, and I kind of did various roles along the way. In 2019, I joined as a partner, and I'm currently now operating as the Chief Investment Officer and one of the managing partners of the fund. My role is to oversee all of the investments, and as the managing partner is also to look at the strategic direction of the business.
So what types of companies is Jensen looking to invest in?
So we're sector agnostic, so we look across all sectors, but every company that we invest in has a similar formula. And that is that they have a really unique IP within the innovations that we look for, and really specific founder sets that we look for as well. Within the innovation, we look for IP that's really defensible. And within the founders, we look for teams that, as I said before, are really diverse. We look for a minimum of 2 founders, but we also look for people who have sector expertise and that industry insight that we're looking for. A minimum of 5 years experience is what we tend to search for when we're looking at founders. When we think about diversity within the founding team, it's not just ethnicity or gender that we look for. We're really looking for diversity of thought and diversity of background, because as all studies show, diverse teams outperform homogeneous teams, and that's what we're trying to deliver back to our investors.
And if an investor backs the fund, how many companies would they typically expect to see?
So portfolio diversification is really important to us, and when building that portfolio is important. We spend a lot of time and effort trying to do that. One of the things we look to do is invest. A typical portfolio that we create for our investors would be around 8 to 12 companies. We tend to have that spread across roughly 80% of those companies will be within the digital space, the digital platforms. We do have an allowance for about 10% for consumer products, and we have an allowance for about 10% for deep tech opportunities. That's on the back of the fact that we have quite a significant amount of deals that we come in, so we can take an opportunistic look at those separate sectors.
Okay. And so could you give us some examples of recent investments you've made in the fund?
Yes, sure. We recently invested in a company called Mangrove Energy. They created a proprietary demand side forecasting model for energy. They are trying to use that now to offer that service to retail customers. They have created a platform that is battery agnostic. What they're trying to do is access renewable energy and solve the problem of both reliability and costs within the renewable energy space. We really like the team because we think it's a really massive market. We think that if that lands really well, then there's a potential for exponential growth within that. So we think that's a great company. Another one is Skimmer Water, which is a consumer product. They make a countertop water filtration system. They have used a new technology, which is an improved form of reverse osmosis, which is a water purification process that actually significantly increases the efficiency. It reduces the amount of wastewater and it reduces the amount of energy that is used to filter that water system. So we like the IP behind that. Also, they have created what they call infusions, which is additives back into that water system for adding for sports people. You have additional electrolytes, and for different types of consumers, you have different additives they put back in. That they've done with a SaaS model. So we really like that sort of SaaS play on top of the IP. And they've done really well in their first year. We were first money in to help them finish that product and go to market. And they kind of smashed all of their first year targets. So we really like the team and really like the performance so far.
So how do you find these investments?
So we find investments from a variety of places. We have well over 2,500 decks coming in every year. The main top 5 sources would be just inbounds directly to our website. We have people reaching out to us on LinkedIn. We have people within our Jensen network. And what we see about the network is the partners from the sister company, Jensen Solutions, but also the founders that we invest in, but also the portfolio companies we've interviewed over the last 12 years. One of the great stats that we like is that we actually have about 2 or 3 companies within our portfolio that have been introduced to us by companies who we've actually turned down because of that whole experience that we've given them. Another source of investments is from our network of angels and private equity and venture capital companies. We have cases where venture capital companies that are later stage than us will actually introduce us to companies, we invest in them, and then once they hit that necessary level, then those VCs invest back in them, which is a great loop. And also, we have the accelerators and incubators that we work really hard to network with and make sure we have access to those deals as well.
And so, Jeffrey, what about some of the more established holdings within the portfolio? Any key highlights there?
So yes, we've been going for quite some time. We have a couple of companies that that done really well. The standard one is Voneus. Voneus is a rural broadband provider, and we were the first investor in with our SES fund back in 2014, I believe it was. We used our ES funds to continue to support them as we tended to syndicate that as rounds got bigger. We exited Voneus in 2022 through Macquarie acquisition. And they've continued to do well ever since. I think they recently raised 250 million this year at a 600 plus million valuation. So it's great to see how the SES supported that company going all the way through.
And to what extent do you get involved in some of these companies that you back?
So we take a hands-on approach to all of the companies we invest in. We have active board seats that we take up. The key thing for us is, as an agnostic fund, we don't bring sector expertise to the table. But because of our background from our Jensen Solutions days, what we can bring is sort of strategic financial and corporate governance support to those companies, which is exactly what they need at that kind of early stage investing. So what you find is that we will tend to have regular calls, regular meetings. We have founder forums that we bring in to help those companies understand what to look out for the next stage. It's all about making sure that founders are ready for that next step.
We've had a couple of tough years for venture capital in the UK. Globally, really. Difficult time for exits. Have you had any exits in the portfolio recently?
We've had a couple of exits recently. We had a plus 10x late last year. Late 2022. And then we had an exit earlier this year as well. Yes, it's been a tough time. We've seen downward pressure on valuations coming in. But the good thing about our portfolio is because of our approach to ensure that our portfolio companies try to get to what we call a low revenue profitability state, as opposed to kind of, focusing on growth at all costs. Our founders are able to kind of hold out until the market returns better multiples back for them, because most of our companies who are ready to exit are at the profitability stage.
Very good. And investing at this stage, clearly very high risk. How high risk is it? How would you quantify the risks?
Well, there's a risk warning for a reason, I guess. These are very high-risk companies that we invest into. The beauty of the SES scheme, of course, is that there's a lot of protections that our investors have access to. When you look at the income tax relief, loss relief, and the capital gains reinvestment reliefs, a well-structured investment can limit an investor's exposure to 13.5%, which is fantastic. And that's in the event that all of the companies in that portfolio fail. When you take a portfolio approach, as we do, to provide investors with the opportunity, we think that helps to significantly reduce the chances of having zero losses. Our track record obviously shows otherwise, so we're quite happy with that.
And so to sum up, Jeffrey, for those that want to invest in an SEIS fund this year, why should they invest in the Jensen Fund?
Again, like I said at the beginning, it's three things for us. One is that we have longevity. We are the longest running fund in the market. We have a track record that backs that up. We have quite a great administration function where we can deliver our tax reliefs back to investors really well. We think that those three kind of really summarize a great reason why you should invest with Jensen.
Jeffrey Foster of Jensen Ventures, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonathan.
If you are watching on YouTube, please press like and subscribe to the channel for more.